Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Telling Tales, and welcome to Symbaroum on a Wednesday night. That's what we do around these parts. We're finally going to start actual Witch Hammer. Witch Hammer. Good beginning. Good beginning to it. Could have been a worse slight variation on the word to say, I suppose. Welcome to Witch Hammer. We are going to play some of that wonderful campaign tonight, part of the Throne of Thorns. Epic campaign published by Fria Ligan for Symbaroum. Yeah, good stuff, good times. But before we get to the good times, we've got to go through some of the bad times, i.e., the merciless promo section. If you check the links down below, you will find a link to YouTube, a link to Twitch. You're watching this on one of them. Please do check out the other one. You'll find links to our social media, to our Discord, to our Patreon. If those things interest you, give them a whirl. We currently run 2 series weekly. Symbaroum is obviously on Wednesdays, and Monday nights is Vaesen, Victorian folk horror, kind of a spookier Hellboy type thing, run by Johnny. So there we go. We also run one-shots every month. We had a couple of them in September, and the next one should be coming up this Sunday. And this is the first time we've kind of declared it because it was up in the air for a while, but I think we're pretty much there in it now. And I've forgotten the name of it, in all honesty. So that's a good start. So this Sunday, we will probably be streaming a couple of games of a shorter kind of improvisational role-play system called, is it, John can nod at me along bottom, it's not called just 4 Sherlock, is it called 3 Sherlocks and a Vampire or something like that?
4 Sherlock Holmes and a Vampire who is also one of the aforementioned Sherlock Holmes.
That's the name of the actual system.
That's the name of the system.
Wonderful. There we go. Thank you, John. So that will be fun and probably funny and weird. And it'll have a host of different people. We're going to try and run 2 games of it because they're about an hour long each. And they'll hopefully have little kind of different lineups. So we'll shuffle people through when we're about halfway through. So yeah, there we go. 4 Sherlock Holmes and a Vampire, who is also one of the aforementioned Sherlock Holmes. There we go. 2 case files of murder, deception, and the improvisational living dead. Wonderful. I like that picture of Bela Lugosi. He looks like a puzzled Sherlock Holmes in it as well. So that's good. There we go. Wonderful stuff. I think that's all the promo. So we can crack on with the recaps from last week now. Maybe he'll turn up partway through our little recaps thing here, but Chris is having some connection issues tonight. Long-time viewers will know that this strikes him every now and then. So we'll see if we have Chris. We may not, but he's not on with us at the moment. So there we go. First off, though, let's talk about Arindar. So Arindar, the first character we're bringing on tonight, played by John. You've already seen briefly. Hi, John.
Hello.
Why don't you tell us where we picked up last week?
So we started by going up to confront the very not good necromancer at the top of his creepy tower. And he was flanked by 2 corpses who threw themselves over the balcony in a very strange move. Alindra and Steo decided to charge forward, as is a thing that Steo and Alindra would do, and instantly came up against like a knockout spore trap. And Arindar stalled for time by trying to engage Ambriagos in conversation. And Ambriagos tried to convince us to join him. But it turned out that he was also stalling for time, because when he invited Arindar to look out the window, Aaron saw the 2 corpses who'd thrown themselves over the balcony, opening the door to the warehouse filled with zombies.
Yes. And emerging at least 200 undead Draugr. Turned the situation quite complicated, quite fast. And with that, let's bring on Stephen. Stephen plays Alindra. former Templar novice turned sword cutty killy lady for cash and power and benefits and all that kind of stuff.
Are you looking for the word sellsword?
I'm trying to avoid excessively using the word sellsword,
okay.
but
Mercenary for hire.
Yeah, sure.
Freelance
fortune
swords
hunter,
person.
treasure seeker. Yeah, all these things.
Sure.
I should emphasize that I said that for comedic value, not because I legitimately couldn't figure out any alternative. It was a bad attempt at comedy, not a bad attempt at synonyms.
Hilarious.
Absolutely.
So a fight ensued. Like Elindra took a little while to regain consciousness. I think Steo took even longer. Asker, I managed to get a couple of shots against the necromancer. I think one of which bounced off and one of which kind of pierced him a bit. But Elindra chased him down with her her spooky cursed sword of currently undefined backstory. Stabbed him, and essentially the sword immediately went through him and turned to dust, but not before whispering, "You're mine," which is not the sort of thing one expects a sword to say generally.
Yeah, and previously, it's certainly never spoken to Elindra before within her memory.
It's not generally chatty, so that was a surprise.
Although, to be fair, it seemed to be speaking to Ambriagos rather than you. But
So I guess the sword had beef.
Maybe the sword had beef. Will we find out? If we do, Chris will complain about it. So
I'm entirely happy for the record with the level of backstory that my weapon currently has.
I appreciate that, Stephen. I really, really appreciate that, and I think that just shows you're not greedy. You know, like some people.
I think we gotta be thankful for what we have.
Absolutely. And speaking of thankful for what we have, let's bring on Sam, who may or may not be our final player tonight, depending on whether Chris gets his connection back, and also someone with a connection with me and Sherlock Holmes in the dim and distant past that very long time fans will be
the precursor
reference
to Sherlock Holmes and No Vampires. So,
yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was obscure. So, Sam, why don't you lead us through the rest of this recap?
So Ambriagos was dead. I think Aaron had already seen out of the balcony that all these kind of zombie ghoul creatures were coming for us, and we could hear them coming. We looked at it again and saw that I think about half of them were still down in the kind of area below the tower, but it sounded like a lot of them were kind of coming up to get us. So we decided the best bet was to climb down some kind of vines, I think, that were outside the balcony. That ended up going extremely poorly for Ascarai, who fell right from the top of these vines. That John has just posted a very important message. First, we looted the room as we as we do. I think we got two
desperately and very with some alacrity, it has to be said.
I think we got two kind of gold urns essentially, and also the jewelry off of Ambriagos himself. I think is
and I think didn't someone just scoop a bunch of coins out of like.
Yeah, there was another a chest of just money that we couldn't possibly get away with, but I can't remember who just took a bunch.
Was it Elindra or possibly someone just took like a small pack and just literally scooped a bunch of coins into it?
I think Steo was the main looter.
Yeah. Got thirst for gold, that boy.
Needs to buy more plate mail. So yeah, with all our not ill-gotten, perfectly reasonably gotten gains. We tried to climb down these vines. Ascarai fell right from the top, very nearly died, but with a few rerolls managed to not completely die. I think Aaron and Steo jump/fell from a more reasonable height, and Elindrum climbed most of the way down, maybe all the way down. At the kind of on top of like a lower floor of the tower, we fought off a couple of zombies that were trying to climb up and get us, and we spotted a way out of the compound through a kind of half fallen down wall that we could get through that would not involve fighting through like hundreds of zombies. And at the same time, to distract them, one of the Templars, whose name we know, but I've completely forgotten.
I'm not sure you do. I don't think you ever learned his name, because
Okay.
the
Is
part
the
of the
other
thing
one?
of it, right? You learn the name of the other Templar, but part of the thing, right, was that the novice, the squire who is still accompanying you, said that the pair of them kind of didn't really know each other when they traveled into the Vale. So you don't know his name, and maybe you never will.
Yeah, he very bravely sort of jumped through a glass window and started just, fighting off these a horde of undead, and basically attracted all of them to himself while we made our escape. We just about managed to climb the wall, the like half fallen down wall that I think Steo struggled with the most, but still got over. And then we just basically legged it. I think we did a couple of healing rolls, but more or less made a beeline for our rope and just climbed immediately out of this veil as fast as we possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
And we found our donkeys and our meerkat waiting, none the wiser as to what had happened below, perfectly happy with their little break from
Absolutely.
us.
Absolutely. So that was probably not going back there again. Was the general vibe into the Valley of the Dead. So yeah, that's it. That pretty much covers it. Is there anything else? Oh God, there was something I wanted to mention. I was like, I'll remember to say that when Sam's done, and now it's completely gone. So never mind. Okay. It looks like we're not getting Chris for the moment, at least. So let's just crack on. So, and you know what? We will say that until / if Chris joins us, Steo is still recovering heavily from those wounds he took. Even though some healing was done, I think he's still very battered and bruised and in pain. So he is convalescing until the return of Chris. So you are now heading northwest along the road to Karvosti, and there are a number of things to note about this. First, it's still going to take you another kind of few days to reach the noted barbarian landmark. And on the way, you cross past a few things, and there's some differences in the road to the northwest that I want you to be aware of. First off, the kind of traffic on the road and the number of other pathways, both slightly overgrown and relatively beaten down, starts to massively increase, particularly around a day or so after you leave the Vale. You see there are a lot of paths leading off. You pass quite a few Odav travelers making their way, most of whom kind of greet you with a fair amount of friendliness. A couple of them try and kind of see if you want to do any trade, and if you want to kind of buy or sell anything standard, then feel free to do so. Along the way, Ganderald kind of informs you that you'll be traveling nearby, but not going directly to a major Odav settlement known as the Archbridge, that's kind of built around an old ruined bridge, as you might imagine. You don't catch any direct sight of it, but one night as you're camping, you see that there is kind of like a very faint glow on the horizon of the incline that you're on, over to the west, and you suspect that it looks like there's a settlement over there, essentially. Not one the size of Thistlehold, but still out here in the darkness of Davakar enough to kind of reflect on the clouds above. These, as I say, ODAV travelers increase. A couple of times faster groups of Ambrian travelers move past you on the path to the northeast to Karvosti, to the northwest, sorry, to Karvosti. And not too long later, two things occur. First, on the path ahead of you, you see a kind of cut down clearing off to the right, in which is the kind of unmistakable build of a Ambrian wooden fencing wall, a barricade, a compound, whatever you want to call it. The gates to it are open, and there are people kind of occasionally going in and out. The guards are unmistakably Ambrian, and most of the people in there, kind of the smells that wash over you are Ambrian in nature, I suppose would be the friendly way to put it. And as you kind of come up to it, Ganderald turns to you and says, this is an outpost of House Viara, a noble house who have invested a lot in trying to build in this region and relations with the plateau. There's an inn in there, but we're only 3 hours from Karvosti, so I suggest we strike forwards.
What time of day is it, Matt?
Let's say that this is not too long after you set off from camping near Archbridge. So I'm going to say it's pretty early in the, you're a couple of hours past dawn.
Ascry has, I think, been to Karvosti before. The amount of traffic we've passed on the road, you say it's been like increasing. Mm-hmm. Does it seem normal to him, or does it seem like there's been more people coming and going than normal?
When's the last time he went to Karvosti?
Probably a long time ago.
The last 5 years. Would it have been within the last 5 years?
It would have been before this whole campaign started, which has probably only been a couple
2
years.
years.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years, yeah.
But probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I would guess.
Then, yes, this amount of traffic is normal to you.
Okay.
What was the name of the house again?
Viara.
Right.
Which is Vearra. If have you got noble contacts?
Yes.
Give me a cunning roll.
Good luck, Aaron. Oh my god, he did it. That's a pass.
There we go. The main thing that House Viara are known for these days, they have a long and storied history, but they are very much proudly in control of the Templars these days. The kind of Grandmaster, is it termed Grandmaster? The Knight Commander of the Templars is a man called Jacobo Viara. And yeah, that's kind of what they're known for, although they are more than just that.
See, Alindra would be kind of interested in going in there and like seeing if she can find out news of what's happening with the Templars, but I don't know that she's going to be able to hold up the whole expedition just on account of saying like, hey, I want some Templar gossip. Like, there don't actually seem to be any kind of particular... Well, let me actually have a look. Will there be Templars in there? I don't think there really are. I think there's, it just looks like a general trading outpost. Some
the guards certainly are. Yeah, the guards certainly aren't Templars. Like, it carries the name of the house, but like...
there's no guarantee that any of them are even there, sort of thing.
No, you think that it's just because they probably own it. That's probably about it, or founded it, or something like that.
Okay. Then if we're 3 hours out, I think we'll keep going, right?
Rather
only really just set off. Yeah. That seems perfectly perfectly legit. So what's going to happen then is shortly after you pass the VR outpost, you see something in the distance in front of you to the northwest that at first is just a scattered set of different colors through the tops of the trees that crowd around the roadway, and then it emerges like rising like an island out of a sea of leaves. The cliff of Karvosti dead ahead of you, a huge rocky plateau raised over the entire forest as far as you can see. And on top of it, from your perspective, is what the main thing you can see is some kind of ornate domed roof glinting like copper or gold in the cold late winter sun over the forest. Obviously, Askarai, you've seen it before, but it's quite impressive for those of you who haven't.
So this is Karvosti. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but this is it's quite something.
It's certainly large.
You seem unimpressed, Aaron.
It's, well, I mean, how does it compare to Indaros in terms of size and scale, Matt?
I mean, Indaros is obviously in a river valley rather than rearing above a vast forest. But I mean, in terms of buildings, it's nothing like Indaros because you can literally only see one building on top of that plateau from this perspective, which is that building, and it doesn't look huge. You can also see a heavy scattering of trees kind of on the other side of the plateau. But you get the sense the plateau continues quite a long way beyond what you can see. In terms of the actual size of the plateau, I mean, it's vast. So, but yeah, maybe it's not the entire size of an Ambrian city, but it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's. I think it will be. I would like to see it closer up.
City boy. So, as you start traveling towards it, and you think you're only, you're certainly not far away from it now. And as the hours pass, Ganderold will kind of start to tell you little bits and pieces of what he knows unless he is stopped as you finally sort of close in on the path up to Karvosti. He will effectively drop into what seems to be an almost reflexive teaching thing where he's just kind of monologuing to you all about the sort of history of the plateau, unless anyone's going to tell him to shut up. Fair enough. So as you reach the foot of the plateau, there is a tent camp around the base of it, full of people who don't seem to be in the best of shape. Several of them are carrying kind of visible marks of corruption, of stigma in one form or another. Nothing so heavy that they seem, about to horribly warp and change into some kind of abomination. But you see people with kind of unhealthy looking kind of like viscous sheens to their skin, or odd red marks on their flesh, or kind of people whose hair seems to be falling out in clumps. It seems like a much smaller and but maybe much more corrupt version of Blackmore. Essentially, the people here are not living well, and Ganderold sort of looks around and says, the Wrathguard do turn away a number of people from the top of the plateau. I'm assuming we want to try and get past the gates. I would rather not stay here. There are other settlements nearby that offer accommodation. There's a goblin tribe to the west, and over on the other side of the plateau, some ogres offer protection in a set of caverns, but I'm assuming we want to stay at the pilgrims' camp on top of the plateau.
I think on top, if they'll have us.
Definitely safest.
Agreed.
That sounds reasonable. The people in the tent camp down here sort of watch you kind of impassively or jealously as you go past and start scaling the long ramping pathway that kind of curves around the side of the plateau and up. If you are concerned in any way about kind of the cardinal directions of these things, you're having to essentially round the plateau and move sort of entirely to the west and up in order to scale it. And as you do so, you essentially have to walk the length of the plateau on one side, which is a lot longer than the side you saw when you were coming up. So it's like a, sort of kind of a rectangular shape rising out of the forest. And you saw kind of the bottom of it. And now you're walking up that one side. And as you start to scale that path that is sort of curving round to the north side of the plateau, Ganderald enters his more teacherly lecturing tone, as if he's kind of delivering something he's delivered several times before to novices of the order. The cliff of Karvosti, quite steep, is an age-old meeting place and thingstead of the barbarian folks, and despite our longer journey, is about 5 days hard ride northwest of Thistlehold. Not much is known regarding its early days, but legend suggests that it first housed a number of temples and that it later became a refuge when the civilization of Symbaroum began to crumble. An indication to back that assumption is that the temple ruin, the one we saw on the south side, rebuilt by the Sun Church, is apparently older than the stronghold of the High Chieftain. That's why the pilgrims come here.
They rebuilt the church in Prios's name.
Yes.
It's that's interesting. This far into Davokar,
It is.
who like Ambrians built it?
That's right. 5 years ago, the High Chieftain and the Huldra were faced with the greatest challenge of the Ambrian migration to date. It was Ambrian explorers who first discovered the sun-like symbols on the plateau's ancient temple ruin. They were followed first by missionaries, later by heavily armed Sun Knights, intent on cleansing the cliff of savages. The Templars attacked, but were, after a bloody day of combat, driven back convincingly by the High Chieftain's Wrath Guards. Long and trying negotiations ensued that finally ended in an agreement by which the Church of Prios was given the right to both remain on Karvosti and restore the temple ruin. About the same time, Queen Corinthia sent the eldest son of House Grendel to the cliff as her envoy and legate. Could we pause a second? It is the path leading around is quite steep and is also dusted with a very light layer of snow from overnight. A late snow in this seemingly rambling on winter that you're still in.
Ganderald, where were you raised? In Ambria? In the forest?
No, I was raised in an Odav village, but I've lived in Ambria since I was 3 or 4, something like that. And I was handed over to the Ordo when I was not much older.
Mm. It's difficult, but You know the forest well. You've done well out here.
I'll admit that most of what I know is learned by rote rather than practical knowledge. But I've been out here a few times. Would anyone like some more of the history? It could bear you in good stead.
I would
Yes.
love to hear more.
Well, whatever the truth about who first lived here, the barbarians have used the plateau for hundreds of years. Clan histories say it was the threatening hordes of something known as the Spider King 5 centuries ago that caused them to appoint a common paramount leader and follow him into battle. This position still exists, the High Chieftain, but has lost supreme authority as soon as the threat was taken care of. Like his predecessors, the current High Chieftain, Tharaban, seems to have no more power than what the clan leaders grant him, if and when they need him to mediate or adjudicate in particular disputes, sometimes peaceful negotiations, sometimes acting as judge, when blood feuds must be settled through brutal duels. To aid him, he has Karvosti's witches, a group which has sometimes translated into the Ambrian as a node, spearheaded by the Huldra Yelata. We'll never get to the top if I don't carry on, I suppose. Come on. Formerly, the witches are advisors in all affairs dealt with on the cliff. They provide guidance based on their profound understanding of the clans and the people. Persistent gossip maintains that they are more than that, that in fact the Huldra leads the barbarians with Tharaban as her mouthpiece. Back in Indaros, skulls and minstrels fondly make use of her as the star of some of the more terrifying pieces about the bloodthirsty barbarians of the forest. I don't think it's that simple, though.
No. But the witches are certainly to be respected here.
Respected, feared, and sometimes they have need of that fear, in spite of the fact that Karvosti rests in the more open and brighter parts of the forest. This is not spared from encounters with the corrupt. Locals say that the attacks from both beasts and abominations have grown more numerous over the past decade. And even if the clan folks tend to accuse the Ambrians of having upset the woods, that might explain why the High Chieftain and the Huldra seek peaceful agreements. If Davokar is growing restless, it could be a bad thing to have hostile Ambrian Templars, Panzars, Mystics at your back. Better to not fight on two fronts. Gates. Ahead of you, you've reached the top of the plateau. Large stone gates, honestly not too dissimilar from Ambrian in nature, stand ahead of you along with a group of other merchants and pilgrims who seem to have arrived just before you. This last stretch of the steep slope leading to the plateau passes between a mountain wall on your west side and a precipice to the east, looking out over the forest. The mountain wall is around the height of 5 men where you are now, and the path itself is blocked by a stone wall 10 paces thick with a pair of double gates of oak-fitted iron. The gates are open. There are 3 Wrathguard posted in the gateway. Another 8 sentries are located either along the edges of the ravine or on the crenellated top of the wall, cast into shadow by the statues of 2 wild boars towering over them. As for Wrathguard, I suppose we haven't talked about what they might look like. Wrathguard are quite elaborately armed and armored clan folk. They tend to wear masks of iron or wood with protruding horns, but each one kind of wears slightly different gear. All of their armor seems to have been dyed or set in some fashion with some form of red material so that they look soaked head to foot in blood.
I suppose these are the people that keep the people at the bottom of the plateau out.
That's right. And I suppose we have to hope we are not some of them. Sometimes their methods for picking who gets to enter and who gets to leave are, well, they seem somewhat arbitrary.
We've walked a very long way, I hope. I hope they're feeling generous today.
They
I hope so too.
They don't look like people that I want to have an argument with.
My note with some names is missing. Can someone let me know what the name of the squire who is accompanying you is, please?
Revelia? What's that?
Yeah, it's Revelia.
Revelia. Thank you. Steo is kind of coming up behind you, kind of half leaning on Revelia. The climb has been quite hard on him, as you can imagine. And ahead of you, the procession of pilgrims and merchants is kind of looked over by the Wrathguard. There is an older man with them with a somewhat, he's got fairly pleasant looking loose barbarian clothes on, but kind of a ragged beard and a somewhat odd look in his eyes. And he sort of talks to each of the travelers in turn. The Wrathguard look over them and don't seem to find any particular problems, and they are waved inside. And then it's your group. Ganderald looks round as if to kind of ask if who wants to be the person who sort of introduces the group.
Aaron will be happy to step forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. The that kind of ragged older individual takes a couple of steps towards you, and in quite an old, it's not even an Ambrian accent; it's an Alberator accent. Kind of says, "Yes, I see. My name is Lamedo. You may know me as Lamedo. I am the translator, the interpreter of the fearsome Wrathguard. Why are you here?"
We are here to see Karvosti.
To see Karvosti. Yes. Well, this is neutral ground, young man. No one is denied entrance except those who are blight marked or carry things deemed dangerous to other residents. He kind of peers down at your meerkat momentarily, and then seems to kind of shrug it off and say, "Do you have anything you wish to declare in what you are carrying? You have many packs. You have many weapons. That is a rather impressive cloak your changeling is wearing."
Are weapons forbidden, Lamedo?
Oh, only if they are forbidden weapons.
I see. Well, I'm not aware of myself possessing any.
Do you bring anything with you from the forest? You have the look of treasure hunters about you. Your packs certainly have the look of treasure hunters.
Perhaps the occasional item of scholarly interest.
Scholarly interest, I see. Well then, display it for these fearsome warriors.
I will. The only thing I have is my very fancy abacus, which I will happily draw from my pack and display. And I will also order Ferren to heal and lie down and prove that he is a good boy. If he does this, that's up to him.
Sure. Give me a persuade roll at +5.
That is target of 16. And a 15, so yes.
Yes, he does. He does heal. What a good boy.
Good.
So you get your abacus out. Lamedo kind of like looks over the rest of you and says, I'm not talking to you one at a time. Come on, you're all together."
Who's holding all the stuff we got from the first place we went on this journey? I think there were a load of stuff.
I think Steo. Well, Steo has the urns, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
I have written down we have a gold gems, a tin flask, a metal forearm, and a very large milky gem.
Yeah, I've made the same things in my notes, but I do not have them on my character sheet. I can only assume that somewhere on one of the mules is a pack with just everything in it.
Sure. And of your older equipment, I'm assuming the hand is back in Thistlehold.
I have the hand, but I absolutely do not show it.
Okay, fair enough. And obviously you've got your cloak.
Yeah, the cloak I will show to them as much.
Has anyone else got any items of power they wish to proffer up for examination?
Elindra's offering up nothing.
Okay.
This is a perfectly ordinary sword and a perfectly ordinary dagger. And...
do we show them the pack of that stuff that we just mentioned? The gem and the forearm and the...
I think so.
Yeah.
The thing is, we don't entirely know what that stuff is.
No.
Ourselves. And the guy didn't seem to be like judging us for being treasure hunters. It was more just making sure that we don't accidentally bring in something wildly dangerous.
Yeah. A bit more
we
like
might be.
A bit more like control than Thistlehold. Hence, your entire first adventures in Thistlehold, chasing after people who brought really dangerous stuff into Thistlehold.
Yeah.
Copper Crown, anyone? So yeah, you know what? You hold this stuff, and Ganderald is going to hold the pack open that has that sort of iron forearm and the gem and stuff like that. Lamedo is sort of peering over it. You get the sense he's trying to look like he knows what these things are, where he has absolutely no indicator. A couple of the Wrathguard kind of stride forward and glance over them for a few seconds. One of them looks over at the other one, who's perhaps more in charge, kind of tall, lithe woman who glances back for a second and then sort of holds her hand up and in quite a very heavily accented Ambrian says, "Wait," and walks inside the gate.
What language do they normally speak in Karvosti?
Ganderald says, generally speaking, most of the clan folk here will speak Odav, because we are in Odav territory, but, many people come here to negotiate and trade, and many languages are spoken. In the Pilgrim camp, obviously, and the Sun Temple, Ambrian.
Okay.
A few minutes later, another figure strides out through the gate, obviously a witch with a heavily ornate mask and sort of enveloping robes that feature sort of sections of strung lace, various fabrics of a few different colors, almost blends into the environment of whites and browns and grays as he strides down the few paces towards you, takes a very careful look around you, kind of very taking you in very much, and then very briefly, the briefest of glances at the things that are being proffered, then straightens up, nods, and indicates for you to go in. Can everyone give me a roll of vigilant? Just a vigilant roll, please.
I rolled a 20.
I made it.
Ascarai, you're fairly sure that this is Gadramon, but he's dressed in a different mask and different robes than the last
Do I
time
get
you saw him.
any impression that he recognizes us?
He certainly did not give that impression. But he also seems to have waved you in very quickly.
Okay, I will I will stay quiet for now, but might mention it to the group once we're through if we're not in earshot of anybody.
Absolutely. There we go. So, with that in mind, you stride through the gates and onto the plateau of Karvosti. Your immediate impression is that the plateau is very large, for the most part, very open, and has several different distinct parts to it. Ahead of you is something which Ganderald has described to you as the Thingstead, which is the gathering place of barbarians when they come here to trade, to negotiate, to stop off on their travel. There don't seem to be too many of them here right now. There are maybe somewhere between 10 and 20 large tents there. There are a couple of permanent buildings, at least a couple of which appears to be, kind of stores of some kind. One of which appears to be a tavern, although it doesn't also seem to be large enough to put people up. Just, a place where people are like drinking. You can see there are a couple of benches outside where barbarian men sits with sort of tankards of alcohol of various kinds. Off further to the south, because you remember you've come in from the north, there is a very large, mostly open, apart from sort of various bits of undergrowth and scrub, very wide open plateau stretching out to the south, at the very end of which is what seems to have been a fault line that at some point has cast the very southern part of the plateau up even further, up another kind of 50 meters. So it's a cliff upon a cliff. And on top of that, you see that copper domed building, which you can now easily surmise as a sun temple. It looks quite like the designs of some sun temples within Ambria, and the scattering like a grove of trees, of very tall trees over on the other side of that raised section of the plateau. In front of that cliff upon a cliff, not too close to it, but maybe about halfway between you and it, is very easily the largest building on the plateau. A vast stronghold of wood and some metal, with a pathway leading it up to it that, as you can see, has Wrathguard stationed at multiple points along to it. This is undoubtedly the stronghold of the High Chieftain. And for any of you who were operating under the belief that the barbarians were simple, foolish savages who dwelled in the forest in huts, this is probably providing you with some culture shock.
That's quite a building.
Yes. Very impressive.
So I suppose one thing we should do now that we're here, Ganderald, is just talk some more about why. I know that this mission was to take in some of those proposed archaeological sites and make our way to Karvosti, but
well, we just thought it was a good stopping off point. As far as I'm concerned, the Ordo's business is done.
It's the safest place nearby to heal and rest, which we need both of.
Okay.
I mean, two other of our group have slightly covert reasons for being in Karvosti, but
the official reason is that essentially we're here as a stopping off point before probably heading south again. Okay.
Yeah, there's snow on the ground. Why not wait the couple of weeks it should take for spring to arrive in a safe place, and then make, there'll be a lot more traffic on that path come the spring, and therefore it'll be a lot safer.
Yeah.
So why not? Is the general idea, I believe. And with that notion in mind, the Wrathguard indicate to you, and Ganderald already knows, that the place for Ambrians to stay is not the Thingstead. The place Ambrians stay, unless, as Ganderol tells you as you stride over towards it, unless you are high-ranking Ambrians, in which case you might stay in the stronghold itself, is the Pilgrims' Camp. The Pilgrims' Camp is over near that vast cliff leading up to the Sun Temple, where two very, very tall pine tree trunks have been kind of shaved down and leant up against the cliff to provide a somewhat difficult underfoot path up to that Sun Temple for the pilgrims to take. The Pilgrim Camp itself is in fairly decent shape, honestly. There are a lot of tents there of various sort of sizes and kind of levels of fanciness in a way. And yeah, as you approach, you can hear like a lot of voices talking, calling out. You can hear some hymns to Prios being called up on the Sun Temple. And as you approach, and we're going to go into slightly fast forward mode here, you are greeted by a man who strides out from the Pilgrim Camp, seemingly quite happy to see you. He introduces himself as Edrafin. Ganderald explains to him that they've met, and Edrafin says, "Oh yes, absolutely." But you get the impression that he long ago forgot who Ganderald was, not because he's incapable in any way, but just because he probably meets a lot of people. This is what he looks like. Later, Ganderald explains to you that he's an old treasure hunter who essentially had to flee Davokar up to the safety of Karvosti and decided, maybe wisely, to never leave again. You can surmise this from the fact that one side of his face and his body seems to be pitted and horribly scarred by some sort of acrid corruption, and he's also missing an eye on that side. The Pilgrim Camp itself is full of all kinds of different travelers, pilgrims themselves, merchants there to trade, explorers, scholars, treasure hunters, fortune hunters. Edrafin shows you around, shows you a place where you can pitch your tents that you already have from the travel to the forest. And most of the rest of your time that you start spending there in the Pilgrim Camp, you can rest, you can explore the plateau to a certain degree, and I can fill you in on other kind of aspects of it that you might want to know. The unusual things that immediately become apparent to you is that, oddly, I suppose you were expecting a sense of tenseness to the plateau, and over the next few days there is some tenseness to it. Occasionally you hear kind of jeers called between Ambrians and barbarians, but honestly there is more a feeling of solidarity against the forest surrounding. You are situated on an isolated cliff deep within the forest, and that sensibility is very much in you. The Wrathguards spend most of their time peering out on the paths leading from the forest and don't seem to be looking for Ambrians or even kind of corrupted travelers. They seem to be anticipating something much worse coming striding out of the forest at any point. And you find yourself, as you're walking the plateau, even maybe unconsciously pausing every now and then and looking out over that vast kind of ocean of trees around you, occasionally feeling paranoid that a tree moves a bit too much, or there's some kind of rustling or odd animal noise coming from somewhere nearby the cliff. This is a kind of sense of underlying unease is added to by how you have to say there seems to be a lot of people in the Pilgrim Camp with various physical and mental afflictions. At night, the silence is often broken by anguished moans, hysterical screams, or mindless babble. Sometimes these spiritually diseased individuals incite each other, and the physically afflicted cry out their suffering in response. after a couple of days, someone mentions to you that this is a phenomenon known as the Karvosti Midnight Choir, named by some Ambrian noble who came traveling through. Exactly why you're not sure, but there seem to be a number of individuals here drawn by the odd sense of the place and the kind of isolated allure of worship of the most ancient temple of Prios in the middle of all this danger. Are there any questions anyone would like to ask about the plateau of Karvosti and the stuff here without getting into too much kind of actually having scenes and dialogue stuff? Because I do want to wind forward a little bit.
So I would very much like to go and check out the temple, but I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the specific things that you.
No, it absolutely is. Like, I won't do a scene of it, but I can give you like a description and stuff like that. Does that sound good? And kind of introduce some kind of talk about some characters and stuff like that. So what you have learned about it is, as Ganderol said, kind of Ambrian explorers, specifically someone known as Sunflower, first detected the sun-like symbols on Karvosti's old temple ruin. The rumour travelled with them back to Indaros, and before long, the Curia sent an expedition to the plateau composed of theurgs and missionaries tasked to study the symbols more closely. After thorough examinations and numerous debates, the verdict was that the ruin is the oldest known temple erected in honour of Prios, potentially even older than the original temples in Alberator. It was decided that the heretical barbarians should be driven from the cliff, and a host of 100 Templars embarked on a sun march to accomplish the task. This did not turn out as planned, as detailed by Ganderold, and the current arrangement was settled. 2 years ago, the relatively small but beautiful temple was finished, with the entrance pointing towards the setting sun in the west. From what you've seen, you're of course welcome up there. You can go to mass there. You can explore it at your leisure. There are a dozen friars and twice as many Templars living on the site, as well as a scattering of theurgs. The shrine seems to be visited by pilgrims and explorers on a daily basis. There is a head of the temple called Father Pyramai, and a subordinate, a liturg called Aaron Nitra. But otherwise, people kind of come and go. It also seems to act as a base for people involved in the demanding and hazardous restoration of an even older ruin that has been discovered 3 days' march east of the plateau. A ruin that is rumored to be the location where some lost prophecies were found on some kind of tablet. But who knows about that, right?
Amazing. That sounds
Is
like
that enough detail for you?
Yeah, that sounds like a fun day trip for us at some point.
Yeah.
So I guess there were the couple of things that I wanted to pick up in terms of just being around in that place.
Mm-hmm.
One is Elinja's quite, just in her appearance, quite obviously got some interesting history with the Sun Temple, and I just kind of wonder if there are strange vibes there in terms of her interactions with other people, or are people mostly just like, it is another pilgrim, like whatever. Like,
yeah, that's basically the vibe. Like, a couple of the Templars have kind of tried to engage you in conversation to kind of basically figure out whether you're just wearing that because you found it somewhere, or whether you're, but
okay.
if you act kind of like private about it, they won't push.
Cool.
So yeah.
And the other thing, I don't know if we want to do it if it's like a cunning roll or something, but I have contacts that are sort of listed as like maybe some church people, but also I'm kind of aware that that viewed through a certain perspective, Prios is one of the sort of temple of many.
Yeah. I mean, that is heretical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's also like what Elindra is aware of and believes.
Sure.
Like she's like so like it was built as a Prios temple because people discovered sun symbols here.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I see evidence of any other symbols that might not be sun symbols that were perhaps kind of willfully overlooked in favor of?
The temple is small enough that you're allowed more or less entirely around it, apart from in the kind of the High Father and the liturg's personal chambers.
Yeah.
There are indeed many symbols of the sun around it that look very old. They don't look like modern Prios symbols at all, or only vaguely so. And no, you do not see any other signs of anything. It does seem to be a temple to a sun god, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Whether that's Prios or not, the curious seem to think so, but who knows?
Yeah, are you getting into some weird ecclesiastical stuff there? Whether it's like, is it Prios or is it some older sun god, and is there a difference? Yeah,
absolutely. Although you know what, Askarai, do you think you'd venture into the Sun Temple?
I think I probably would go with Elindra if Elindra's going.
Why don't you give me a cunning roll?
Okay. Roll cunning, which I think is a 10. Rolled a 15, so I don't make it.
Never mind. Yeah. Do you think you'd be there for mass at all at any point?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I felt like it wasn't going to be uncomfortable or that I wasn't going to be unwelcome there, then yeah, I would sort of sit at the back.
Everyone seems welcome there, and there's some far more odd individuals than you in attendance at these things. You have to say, and you've heard quite a lot of masses in your time, clearly. Even for the modern Sun Temple, this Pyramise sermon is inflammatory, let's say. Kind of a bit of an anti, not because he directly mentions it, but a sort of anti-Sarvola type spin on the worship of Prios. He closes with the remarks, and you know what? Even if you don't attend multiple masses, you hear him closing with these remarks every time you hear a mass echo out from the Sun Temple on the top of that kind of risen cliff. Grant us strength, O Prios, Father of our laws. Cleanse us so that we may reflect your light in all its glory. Flog the soot of our souls. Carve the rot from our skins. For our torment is just and can never be too great, if only it may save the one. There are lots of veiled references in the whole of this sermon to cleansing places of individuals who are not worthy to be in those places. Yeah, it seems oddly directly confrontational to the barbarian presence on the plateau.
Okay. In a way that seems consistent with like ultra orthodox kind of how they might do things at Temple Wall, or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I mean, he's yeah.
Sort of very kind of true colors, orthodox.
Yeah, fire and brimstone stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Just seems odd given how everyone seems to be trying quite hard to work together here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's how Prios worshippers be sometimes.
Yep. Prios worship be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
So, Aaron and Askarai, is there anything you kind of want to investigate? Again, like we won't get into super detail, but if there's something you want contextualized, then let's go for it.
What are the other like socialization places that Ambrians can go that isn't either the pilgrim camp or the temple?
There is a tavern in the Thingstead which welcomes Ambrians. Okay. The only difference is that Ambrians have to pay and barbarians don't. which becomes apparent to you the first evening you spend there when you notice the other the barbarians just getting food for free, not drink. And that's called the Longhouse, and it's as it is described. It's a big, barbarian clan longhouse. It's quite pleasant inside. The atmosphere is fairly convivial. The only thing is there does seem to be a kind of resident ogre there, who, like unlike a lot of places where a resident ogre in a tavern means you really have to be walking on eggshells. This ogre seems to bother, since when he's in his cups, he seems to spend most of his time being alternatingly maudlin and overly friendly with people. For an ogre, he's got quite a good kind of vocabulary and good Ambrian. In fact, he has an Ambrian accent, so you don't think he's necessarily from kind of clan lands. And he kind of pesters people a little bit, but other than that, it has a rotating kind of slightly different people each night, depending on who's coming and going. And yeah, you spend more than a few evenings there because there's not much else to do. Does that answer your questions for you?
Yeah. I think the main thing I might be doing is chatting with people at the Longhouse and trying to keep an ear out for the name Malahai.
You can feel free to do that. I won't even make you roll. You definitely don't hear the name Malahai. I'm assuming you're not going to be going around going like, hey, has anyone seen like an elf? Because Karvosti regularly defends itself from elves as well as from creatures of the forest. So,
Yeah, I think I'm smart enough not to try that.
Absolutely. How about you, Ascarai? Anything else?
I think Ascarai might very cautiously see if he can find Gadraban.
Sure. Yeah. How are you going to go about that?
Does Ascarai know where the witches stay on Karvosti?
This leads us beautifully, Ascarai, into some more information. As you are roaming the plateau and trying to find out things, you hear from another pilgrim that the witches make their home further along that upper cliff, kind of over on the side away from the Sun Temple. And as you're traveling over there, and this is basically there is a large ruin, as you can see there, embedded into the face of that cliff, a very impressive one, clearly Symbaric in nature. The people in front of it, you just happen across them. Let's not make them a chicken in a basket, but they are basically a couple of there's a couple of Templars literally just sparring with a Wrathguard, and it all seems like fairly friendly. And it's clearly sparring, not fighting. They kind of ignore you as you wander past. There are a number of Wrathguard outside what seems to be the main entrance to that kind of ruin face. They are stood kind of directly abreast to each other, and they do not seem to be inclined to let people past. There is a stone door in the face behind them, and it is very closed.
Okay. I might...
You have not seen any witches since you first passed through the gate.
Right. But I do at least know they went and got a witch from somewhere. So I might say to them, can I see Gadraban?
Do you mean the Wrathguard at the...
Yeah, the Wrathguard.
Yeah, it's Gadramon, by the way. But
Gadramon. Right. Gadramon.
Sure. If you when you walk up to them, they kind of... They don't say anything and they don't move, but you feel their stance kind of... Basically, they were standing there relaxed before, and now they're ready to go. But they don't say... So are you just going to walk up and ask if you can see Gadramon?
Yeah, I'll walk up and ask if I can see Gadramon if he's...
One of the Wrathguards behind like a kind of white wood mask with a long curving set of horns. You hear a woman's voice from behind the mask, again in quite bad and heavily accented Ambrian, say, "No disturb."
Okay. I understand. Maybe in ODAV, in my best ODAV, I'll try and say, if you see him, please tell him his friends from this
in Odav or in your native tongue.
Well, I don't know if they they speak my name.
You know that Wrathguard come from all different clans, so there might be. Is it what is your clan?
Godinja is my native.
There may well be a member of the Godinja clan among these. There's like 10 of them. Like, if they're random clans, your odds are good.
You've got I've got a good shot. Okay, in Godinja, I'll say to them, if you see him, please tell him Askrai from Thistlehold is here and would like to speak to him.
You see a couple of them who were talking sort of visibly relax a little bit, and a man's voice from behind another, like much smaller but more ornate mask says, "Oh, the witches are in seclusion. They must not be disturbed. When he emerges, I will make sure your message is passed on, but it may be days or weeks."
Thank you, and for the information as well. And I will head away. It's fair enough.
Okay, there we go. Well then, what we're going to do, folks, is we are going to we're going to roll forward by 2 weeks. And the reason we're going to roll forward by 2 weeks is because winter is really refusing to stop. Not in a weird, unnatural, spooky, magical way. It's just taking a long while for the frost and the snow to leave the ground. And Ganderald has said, you might as well stay here until the travel back is more clement. So why not? And we are going to fast forward to an evening at the Longhouse where if anyone doesn't want to be there, that's absolutely fine. But otherwise, you could be gathered with Ganderald, with Revelia in there, sharing a drink. The food in there is good. It's a fairly packed night. There are a couple of groups of fortune hunters seem to have come in. They're scattered around. You can see a Queen's Ranger who's looking a little bit worse for wear and very tired, sort of drinking alone at one table. There's even a black cloak in the corner with like a little sort of sheaf of papers out that he seems to be scribing into something. There are any number of kind of barbarians in there. And over on a table nearby you is the ogre whose name you've learned is Crueljaw, who's talking to the liturg, the kind of second in charge of the Sun Temple, who is called Aranitra. Are we kind of generally drinking from the supply of fine Zarekian black brew, which I'm going to if it's called, I'm going to say is kind of like a Guinness type drink.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. I have a question related to the last thing that happened. What does Askra have any idea what it might mean for witches to be in seclusion?
Not really, no.
Okay.
As another aside, before we get into the stuff, the things that I'd heard about the older ruins 3 days to the east, where they'd found that prophecy, I would have mentioned that to the other people in the party if they hadn't gone with me. So I think we would be, certainly I would be not loudly making inquiries or anything, but keeping an ear out to see if anybody else was talking about that and what was being said.
Absolutely.
Just for the record.
Yeah. Nothing like speculation and stuff and gossip, but nothing solid. Like everything everyone says is always something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're not
Lots of
entirely
rumors.
sure. Yeah. As you're sat around drinking and as the evening is wearing on and most people are getting kind of pleasantly soused, you hear kind of some noise outside as a number of people kind of tramping past, maybe another group of individuals arriving relatively late in the night. The door opens with a creak. It's kind of like pattering with rain outside, which at least is doing a job of melting the snow. And a couple of individuals walk in. One of them is quite familiar.
Well, there's a sight for sore eyes.
And Tom.
Hi, Alindra. Sidar.
What?
Askrai.
What are you doing here?
I intended to return from my journey, and I have. And we find ourselves quite a long way from Thistlehold, it seems.
Weren't you heading east?
I was, and I have travelled a great many miles there, spent some time there, and then travelled, well, an even further distance back. And I am extremely tired and saddle sore and in need of a refreshing ale and a sit down with some good friends.
Let me get you a drink, Father Anton.
Sort of clear a space on the bench or whatever.
How
Well,
are you all?
We're alive. We made it to Karvosti.
Much better for having our priest here, that's for sure.
Yeah, we could have done with you back in the Vale.
We had quite an eventful time.
There was a necromancer. There was some dragools. It was a whole thing.
Oh, that sounds very much like you had a trip into Davokar. And while I wish I was able to offer some assistance, I can't say that I regret not being there. But I'm extremely pleased that you're all safe and sound.
And was your own journey successful?
I believe so. I think I did everything that I needed to do. It wasn't without its trials and tribulations, but I am done, I believe, sooner than I anticipated, perhaps slightly, thanks to a swift horse, which got me here a bit faster than I'd first thought. But yes, the matter, I believe, is done. And
Excellent.
I must say that it is really good to be back here with you all. I missed you all terribly.
Oh, group hug. So that's surprise return. Settled. Let's talk about the conversation on the table next to you. Cruel Jaw and Aranitra seem to be whispering to each other with some intensity. No roll is required for you to realize that Cruel Jaw, the ogre, is quite upset. He has a sullen expression and he's quaffing his black brew with some haste. Their conversation is, as I say, whispered, but doesn't mean that anyone couldn't try and eavesdrop. It's up to you whether you want to do so.
I will have a go.
Sure.
I've slightly mentally tagged Cauldron as a person to eavesdrop on, so I will also have a go.
Will anyone try and can roll vigilant at -1?
Passed.
No.
Okay. Cruel Jaw, the ogre, is saying, he promised you were supposed to find her and take care of her. We did all we could when someone like Elmendra doesn't want to be found, but she was marked. She reeked of sulfur, or be quiet and calm. But she could die all alone, sick and hurt. Die. Lower your voice or I'm leaving. Cruel Jaw does indeed lower his voice beyond your capacity to eavesdrop, but the conversation continues to look quite intense.
I'll quietly relay back to the table. Cruel Jaw seems concerned about someone called Elmendra.
You know what? If anyone wants to if anyone thinks they might want to rack their brains for an Elmendra, they can go ahead and give a cunning test.
I'll try. I mean,
I did.
Stephen doesn't remember. No, neither does Elindra.
Sam doesn't remember. Maybe Ascarai.
No. You shouldn't remember, but your characters might. So if Ascarai passes, you know what? That's quite convenient because Ascarai has spent quite a lot of time around fortune hunters and treasure seekers by his scouting side hustle. Elmendra is the name of a somewhat notorious Ambrian fortune hunter, often called Elmendra the Senseless, out of both respect and ridicule, who the last couple of times she was present in Thistlehold seemed obsessed, as some treasure hunters do, with making the greatest find possible in the forest of Symbaroum, which is, of course, anyone?
Prophecy written on a couple of tablets.
No.
The city of Symbaroum?
Yeah.
Well, the city of Symbar, but yes.
Symbar, yes. This is all Symbar.
Yeah, it's like the El Dorado of Davokar, right?
Yeah.
But that's what you recall, Sam. Maybe it might not be that Elmendra. I mean, if it's not, then that was an amazing bit of deception for me to just. But like, yeah, within the context of the conversation, it seems to make sense as well, right?
Yeah. I will mention this to the group very quietly. Could be the Almendra from, well, I don't know if she's from Thistlehold, but the treasure hunter, famously looking for Symbar. I don't know.
If she's gone looking, and she's in a bad way now, imagine the things that she might know.
But imagine where she might be.
You're on mute, Matt.
That would explain why people just carried on talking. As you say that, suddenly Crueljaw springs to his feet. He grabs the Liturg and raises his fist, roaring with rage. The Liturg, she looks somewhat terrified. The ogre seems fully intent on striking her.
Crueljaw, calm down, my friend.
It's almost certain you have conversed with him over the last 2 weeks. As I say, he gets maudlin and friendly in his cups. So are you...
I'll be
you're
standing
trying to
up.
persuade... Are you trying to like grab his arm?
Very pointedly standing up,
non-aggressive.
Hand on the hilt of the sword, like.
Sure. Okay. I don't think Stephen's approach will work with Crueljaw. I think there's an outside chance Aaron Dars will. If anyone wants to actually try and stop him physically, not necessarily but just like putting a hand, calm down, Crueljaw, it's not worth it. Sort of thing.
Crueljaw, it's not worth it, mate.
Exactly. Like, you could give that a go as well. I think there's an outside chance of Aaron Dars working. So let's have a persuade -4, please.
Ooh, okay. That is a fail.
Yeah. Is anyone else doing anything? You don't have to. I'm imagining that Anton is quite arrived. What the fuck?
I think I'm drinking ale and perhaps tucking into some sort of stew or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching what's going on, but I'm like, I'm looking after number one right now.
Absolutely. Well, just to let you know, the main two things on the menu, there's soup with bark bread, which probably sounds nice. I imagine bark bread is like maybe some kind of like, what's the bread called that has like the really ridged
tiger bread?
Yeah, sure, but
with like salt and pepper topping to it.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it sounds nice. Or there's grilled meat with turnip mash.
Ooh. Am I placing an order at this point? What's going on?
I'm just wondering what you're eating. Bit of flavour. What are you eating?
I would probably go for the soup with the nice bark bread.
Warming.
Excellent choice, sir.
Excellent choice. Anton's just like, whoa.
Are they sat like right next to us, or like?
Yeah, they're the next table over from you. Like, yeah.
I think seeing this may be about to kick off, and especially with it being between like effectively a barbarian and an Ambrian in Askrai's like kind of view. Askrai's
No,
gonna
Cruel Jaw is Ambrian.
okay.
But an ogre and a liturg of the church.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that
Yeah,
matters
yeah.
less to Ascarai.
Ascrai is gonna like, he's not gonna do anything about it, but he's gonna stand up from his table and like take a step back, if anything, rather than towards
clear
this.
some room.
Yeah,
Sure,
exactly.
Well, in that case, obviously, I'm afraid nothing you do prevents Cruel Jaw striking Aranitra with quite a solid blow. Not like he's not like trying to kill her or anything. He's just mad and he's lashing out and hitting her. She falls to the floor with a thump. She's out. She's gone. And as he does that, he sort of he seems full of anguish and frustration and just lets out a kind of mindless wail. And at this point I will bring him onto screen. There we go. There is Cruel Jaw. And he just kind of almost like you don't know if he's addressing the rest of the people in the tavern, most of which have kind of gone, it's that kind of like, not usually a dangerous tavern, but in any situation, in pubs, if something starts, everyone just kind of goes, "Ooh, is this going to get worse? What's happening?" And kind of, you're not sure if it's to everyone or just to himself, or, just because he's drunk. He just kind of like staggers back a bit and kind of crashes down on his stool again and says, "Per my promise, he promised to find and help Elmendra. She's in danger. She's blight marked. She looked like she hadn't eaten. He promised." Is anyone going to engage with him in any way? The entire tavern is listening to this.
Cruel Jaw, why don't we step outside for a moment?
Not going anywhere. I need to drink. He grabs his jar of black brew and just necks the lot.
I'm going to bend down and see how Aranitra is and if there's anything I can do to help her.
She's like, like rolling around. You think her nose is probably broken. And she's like blinking, but her eyes are focusing all right. So probably no permanent damage done other than the broken nose.
Okay.
I might go and sort of kneel down next to her and see if I can do anything like medically for her.
Sure, give me a cunning roll.
I make it. Roll a 7.
Yeah, you could probably reset that broken nose, but you probably want to warn her before you do it.
This might hurt. And that is yeah.
That was 7 days ago. Anything could have happened to her. I gave him what she asked. I gave him the hammer.
Who is this Almendra? What's happened to her?
I don't know. She's my friend. She gave me the hammer and I gave it to him and he promised and now he hasn't done anything.
Well,
So, all a reason for going down into the tunnels. She found the hammer, but she was looking for directions. She said she found them. She said she found it. She said she found Symbar. The tavern goes very quiet. And now she's gone. And she's probably dead somewhere in the woods. Half eaten by jackals, by goblins. He kind of tips back on his stool and is kind of half leant against the wall and just kind of sobbing. As I say, the tavern is very quiet and everyone in there is staring at the ogre, someone near the back of the room goes, Symbar?
Who said they were going to help Cooldraw?
Well, he said it was Pyramai said he was going to help, which is the name of the father of the Sun Temple.
Ah.
Is that the guy that's been giving the masses?
Mm-hmm.
What tunnels?
Tunnels underneath Karvosti.
I look at Ganderald.
Ganderald's eyes are very wide. Is everyone in the group focused on the troll or the ogre, or like are other people kind of looking around the tavern or trying to address other people in the tavern in any way? Or
So Alindra's still with Aranitra, and like listening to what Crueljaw said, but I think she's going to be looking around because she's going to have realized that what he's saying is like potentially setting off a powder keg. Like that's incredibly explosive. So like she's watching
fine.
the situation in the tavern.
Yeah. Anyone who is kind of looking around the tavern and don't feel the need to just do it because I'm proposing a roll, as you all know, that's one of my bugbears. But anyone who is can make a vigilant test.
That's where I would definitely be looking around.
To pass.
Yeah.
Okay. Elindra and Askarai then. Two people a lot of people are kind of turning and starting to talk to each other excitedly. You notice the Queen's Ranger, who's been stood there looking kind of stone-faced, kind of glances around and slips out of the front door very quietly. A few moments later, the Black Cloak kind of watches him leave and then gathers up his sheafs of stuff, tucks them under the cloak, and isn't far after him when he strides out. The room is now starting to sort of erupt in a bit more heated argument. Everyone can hear a number of things being shouted, kind of people entertaining thoughts of what if it's true, others shouting that they must be false or that Elmendra has lost her mind. And one person is sort of saying, there are other rumors talking about the way to Symbar. They're less dangerous to verify. Breaking into the heart of Karvosti is about as easy as bedding the Queen. It's turning increasingly vitriolic.
Askra is going to step outside as soon as he sees the Queen's Ranger and the Black Cloak go outside, and he wants to see where they are going. Like, what direction are they going from here?
Sure. Can you give me a quick roll to see whether because it's dark outside, to see like how...
That's exactly what Alindra was going to ask Askarai to do in the medium of meaningful looks.
I rolled a 4, so I make it, basically.
Okay. So Askarai and Alindra, you slip through the tavern and out into the night. You can see that the Black Cloak is the Queen's Ranger. You basically catch a glimpse of him running out of the gates of Karvosti. And similarly, you see the Black Cloak in the stables nearby mounting a horse.
Okay, so they're both leaving the whole, this part of the plateau at the very least.
Seem to be.
Okay. Seeing that, I'm not going to run after them. I'll head back inside, but...
Yeah. We're sort of quite near the gates at this end, right? So...
You are very near the gates, yeah. The Thingstead is basically at the gates. Just a little, like a very short walk away. As you are doing so, and for the two people inside, by the way, for Aaron and Anton, the Liturg is kind of recovering. She shuffled a bit away from Crueljaw and is eyeing the sort of crying troll with some anger and sort of vague disgust at the state of the ogre, and obviously unhappy about her broken nose. But the tavern, it's not like a tavern brawl is breaking out, but there's definitely some heated arguments going on, and at least one person has thrown a punch at someone else. It's not all about to turn into a ridiculous comedy tavern fight, but like the atmosphere is a bit aggro, shall we say.
I think I will go to the bar and pay any outstanding amount for both like our table and the other table, and offer Cruel Jaw what remains of everyone's drinks on the table, but like kind of trying to usher him out at the same time.
Sure. So as you're kind of like, so you're trying to kind of like get Cruel Jaw to leave.
Yes, but he indicated that he wants to drink, so I'm trying to.
Yeah, he ain't going anywhere right now. That's for sure. Elindra and Askarai, as you are turning to kind of go back into the longhouse, could you both give me a vigilant roll, please?
Okay.
That's a fail.
I just made it.
Okay. Elindra, you can feel free to be like halfway in at this point, having not noticed anything. Askarai, you notice an individual, and it's not exactly a town square here. It's certainly not paved or cobbled or anything. But like outside the longhouse, there's a couple of other built, like wooden buildings that serve stores. In fact, one of them serves. Cruel Jaw maintains one of them as a sort of monster hunting and hunting in general store where he sells various supplies. But there's kind of an open area where the other tents of the barbarian travelers are strung out kind of around it. And in the middle of it, kind of staggering forward, there's like the rain is kind of pittering to a stop now, and there's like a parting of the clouds above, and in this kind of winter starlight, you can see that there's like a barbarian man, a young one, kind of staggering, almost kind of drunkenly through the center of this area in front of the longhouse. And you kind of don't particularly think anything of a drunken man near the tavern. And then, like through just as a starlight opens overhead, you see that he is clutching his chest, where there is a large dark smear running down the front of his clothing, and something similarly dark is dripping from that area onto the ground and leaving a trail behind him. You're on mute.
I will rush over to him if I see him struggling, and
you do. As you get closer, he's clearly been struck with some kind of vicious wound to his chest. He staggers forward and kind of pitches into you and says, "Hi, chieftain. Stronghold under attack." He there is a rush of blood from his mouth, and he collapses forward into you. You hear bells start to ring, echoing across the plateau.
Does this man seem like a soldier or just like a random barbarian?
He's armed.
Guy?
He has like he has a long dagger at his side, but he's certainly no Wrathguard. He's not wearing a soldier's uniform. But he has a long dagger on one hip and the empty scabbard where a sword was on the other.
The bells, are they coming from the stronghold?
They actually sound like they're coming from all around the plateau.
Okay, I'm gonna rush. I'm gonna sprint back to the tavern.
Okay. And the tavern is, as you left it, only louder and more aggravated. Anton seems to be Anton and Aaron are kind of still by Cruel Jaw and the Liturg. Elindra's probably like halfway across back to them.
I'm gonna shout, directed at the rest of the party, but like with the intention that other people can hear. The stronghold is under attack. we need to go.
Sure. Can you roll persuade, please? I think there are alarming words, but also it's very loud. Persuade at a +4.
Okay.
Let's see how much attention you get.
My persuade is 5, so I need a 9. I rolled a 17, so no.
Yeah, no. I'm going to say only Alindra hears you at this point.
Okay.
What?
There's a man dead in the square. The bells are ringing. The stronghold is under attack now.
I am going to stand up on a table and kind of bang some tankards together and try to make as much noise as I can to sort of cut over there.
Sure. Give me a standard strong roll, please, Alindra. I think this will be fine for you.
We're using strong instead of persuasive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pass.
Oh, yeah. You make a lot of noise and people die down a bit. Someone kind of shouts, "Be quiet," which seems ironic given how loud it was a moment before.
I'll shout that the stronghold is under attack, and hopefully that kind of buys enough time that I can direct attention back to Ascarai to explain what he just saw.
Yeah, there is a momentary silence after you shout that, and in that silence, the bells are very audible, even inside here. A couple of clan folk kind of leap to their feet and sort of scream, "The bells! The bells! It's true!" And there is a rush for the door. Are we part of that rush?
Yes, but I will try and gather or be grouped up as we rush. At least an attempt.
Is
Never a
Cruel
dull
Jaw
moment.
also rushing for the door? Is he staying?
No, Cruel Jaw is at the end of the angry phase of his drunkenness and is entering his half passed out, weeping inconsolably to himself section of his drunkenness.
I think I recognize this cycle from Serek's Atio. So I will leave him to it.
It's not fighting a clock.
One of the proprietors of the tavern is yelling for people to get out so they can bar the door. Well, they're actually saying leave. Basically, they're saying leave or stay, but we need to bar the door. Sort of thing.
Cool. I'll look around at the others, and presumably we're all leaving.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So this arc starting as calmly as the previous one. You all managed to scramble out into the night. As I say, the starlight has made the visibility a bit better out here. There's still like that tang of very late, very, very cold water in the air, and everything underfoot is kind of soaking. So any of you who don't have really, really good boots are going to end up with very wet feet. And indeed, Anton will end up with very wet everything because he's wearing a long robe. So that's that. Ahead of you is kind of a general panic. You can see Wrathguard dashing around the gates. You can see a couple of Wrathguard kind of bounding across the plateau in the direction of the stronghold. Over by the stronghold, you can see that one window is kind of pouring out flame and smoke, which is lighting up the area around it, which seems to have several melees are kind of broken out, and there is some kind of conflict. You're nowhere near close enough to determine how that is going or who is fighting. Most of the individuals who exited the tavern seem to be rushing for their tents. You don't know whether that's because they want to hide or they want to get their weapons and fight, but either way, it's generally a panic. You can also see in the pilgrim camp several large fires have sprung up. They look more like someone's lit like big beacon fires to light up the area a bit more. And there seems to be kind of like a confused noise coming from there. But most of these places are so distant that you can only really hear anything because the night is so still and the plateau is so open. Yeah.
Is there any sense of anything happening at or outside the gate other than Wrathguards heading from the gate to the stronghold?
No, there are some guards heading from the gate to the stronghold, but equally there are more guards arriving at the gate and forming like a concentrated mass of guards of Wrathguard at the gate, and they are focused outside.
Okay. Yeah.
Would it be possible to get up on the walls?
Not unless you want to fight the Wrathguard guarding around them.
No.
They don't seem to be yet. They don't seem to be looking at us, but they seem to be there just to stop anyone coming in or out, or anything coming in or out.
Presumably, someone or something has already got in, and they're ensuring that nothing else does.
That seems to be the general vibe. Absolutely.
Okay. Are we going to the stronghold?
I think so. If the stronghold is in trouble, if the stronghold falls, the whole plateau is doomed.
Ganderald sort of is quite pale-faced, but nods and says, "It seems that yes." Revelia draws her sword, turns to you, Alindra, and says, "I'm behind you, sir."
Double time. I'm going to run.
Okay, we're making for the stronghold then, yes?
Mm-hmm.
So ahead of you, as you get closer, as I say, the flames from that part of the stronghold are lighting up the area. The starlight is bright overhead, so the visibility as you get closer and closer is fairly decent, considering you're sort of in the middle, or at least kind of maybe around 11 o'clock at night. The fire doesn't seem to be spreading, which is probably good news. And you can see like the shadowy figures of people behind like the sort of window gap, sort of like moving around feverishly around the fire, presumably trying to put it out in some fashion. As you get closer, the groups of people ahead of you resolve themselves into the bad news is it definitely seems to be Wrathguard fighting Ambrians. Which is probably exactly not what you wanted to see. The Ambrians seem to be wearing Ambrian soldiers' uniforms. They also seem to be dying very fast. The Wrathguard are absolutely cutting them to pieces. I imagine none of you have ever seen Wrathguard fight before, but suffice to say, let's just illustrate their style of fighting. You know what? It reminds you of something, or I could in fact say someone. If I describe their style of fighting as, maybe that isn't them. Oh, that's Iron Sworn, actually. There is a Wrathguard one. Sorry, I'm looking for the Wrathguard. I swear there's a Wrathguard thing. Hang on. Sorry. Brief break in the old... yeah. Oh, it's called Blood Combat. Okay, so it is actually different from what I thought it was, which means that my my little description I was going to give is not... okay, yeah. The Wrathguard don't actually remind you of anyone, but they do fight in what seems to be an extremely blood-hungry and relentless way, where they are kind of willingly stepping into into blows and just tanking them, as it were, and allowing the enemies to get the tip of an axe wedged into their armor and dug into their shoulder, only to kind of step up and wrap their arms around them and just drive a blade into their back repeatedly. They seem to have really very little regard for their own safety. You've never seen anything quite like it. But equally, even though they do that, very few of them seem to be heavily wounded. They're simply allowing themselves to take small wounds to get in close so they can cut down their enemies. As you see several of these melees break out, and there aren't a huge amount. You'd say that you can only see maybe a total of 20 people fighting overall. Something else that you see and I'm not going to make you roll for it because you're basically the only people in the area not fighting and engaged in this. You see two men who look to be older Ambrian men running off in the direction of the pilgrim camp. The Wrathguard seem occupied with the people they are already fighting.
The older Ambrian men dressed like soldiers as well?
Correct.
Okay. So how many Ambrian soldiers do we see? About 20?
No, you probably saw about 8 Wrathguard, 12 soldiers fighting. The Wrathguard seem to be having no problems whatsoever. And you see 2 other Ambrians running off towards the pilgrim camp.
Is the pilgrim camp big enough, or like from our time up here, like is it plausible that Karvosti's big enough that there were a dozen or so Ambrian soldiers just around?
I will say yes, and also, you know what, you've had that thought, but it is dark. Give me a vigilant roll at -3.
Okie dokie. I'm just trying to work out how surprising it is that there's a force of that size around. That is a pass.
Yeah. Okay, you recognize a couple of the Ambrian soldiers being cut down by the Wrathguard as people from the pilgrim camp from the past few days. They weren't wearing that soldier's gear then.
Okay, so they've it looks a lot like they've come here, they've bided their time, and then they've mounted an attack.
Seems a fair assumption.
Okay.
Is the uniform just like standard Queen's Army?
You're not close. You're not. Yes-ish, but you're not close enough to see full details.
Right.
Maybe you could be if you accosted those 2 gentlemen. They're not running particularly fast.
I suppose I'm going to run after them.
Yeah.
Sure.
This doesn't seem right. I'm going to run after them.
Cool. Are you going to like? Is it a situation, Ascarai, where you're literally firing at them from a distance, or are you trying to get to them first and maybe interact with them before any kind of violence might erupt?
I'm not going to shoot at them. I'm going to run after them. When I think I'm in like shouting range, I'll shout at them to stop, but I'm not going to shoot at them from without talking to anybody.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, can everyone give me a quick roll, please? And I will find your modifier now. A quick roll at a bit more than that there. Yeah. A quick roll at minus. Oh no, actually, let's just say flat quick roll. Okay. I was adjusting it in the wrong direction.
Are we all sort of barreling after them? Is that the thinking?
Anyone who is running after them, make a quick roll.
I was good.
I just made it.
I'm going to not roll. I was going to head towards the fire, so I'm going to not follow them.
Okay, so you're splitting off from the others. Cool. So Anton is like tired, saddle sore.
Saddle sore, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to run when you're saddle sore, that's for sure. Yeah, you're having flashbacks to a certain interaction with a certain goblin. You're kind of jogging along behind it. And probably Ganderald and the squire. The squire has gone with Alindra, but Ganderald is jogging along with you as well. Aaron and Ascarai, you're kind of like coming up on the 2 men who are running away. Did you say you were kind of yelling out at them?
Yeah, yelling to stop. Just that.
Sure. To your maybe mild surprise, they do so. They kind of wheel round on you. You can see they're both in their late 50s. One of them has a kind of some old kind of spinal injury that has made his stance a little bit off, and the other a large indentation on his skull, which if Steo was with you rather than resting back in the pilgrim camp would tell you is probably a wound that gives him horrible blazing headaches. As they wheel round on you, you were asking questions about uniforms, Aaron.
Yes.
Why don't you give me a cunning test, please?
Okay. Any modifier?
Nope.
Oh, exactly a pass with a 7.
Yeah, they are accurate Ambrian uniforms from 10 years ago. Like, they're a style that's, visibly slightly dated.
Okay.
One of them, kind of the one with the indentation on his head, they both have swords drawn, and he's going to basically kind of look at you and kind of look around and say, "Are you trying to stop us? You better not be."
Well, that depends on who in the Queen's name you are. What do you think you're doing?
The other one says, Don't bother talking to them. They're savage humpers. Got them. Combat.
Draw my sword.
Draw your sword. Okay, give us initiative, please, John.
Okay.
They are at Vigilant 10 and Quick 11.
Vigilant 10, Quick 11. Oh no, I need to add Anton back into the initiative.
You do need to add Anton back into the initiative.
I'm almost
He'll
certain
spend this
they
turn
last.
reaching you. Yeah, you'll spend this turn reaching them anyway. So
You are. Should I just put them as guards, soldiers? Like,
put them as Ambrians. That's fine. They're clearly Ambrians. They have broad, kind of old-fashioned Ambrian accents.
well, Ascarai is definitely going at the front unless he changes his mind.
Okay, Ascarai, what are you doing?
How far away are these people?
They're charging you far enough away that you could definitely fire on them this turn if you want.
I'll fire at them.
Well, loose on them, I should say. One does not fire an arrow, one looses it.
The one who said gut them is the one I'd like to shoot.
Sure. Yep. Well, then their defense is a mere. Well, their defense is actually a -3 because they've got decent shields. So go for it with that. Are you doing the? Are you taking your armor penetrating shot?
I'm going to do my hunter's instinct thing, and I will do the armor piercing shot rather than the double shot, I think.
Absolutely.
So I need a -3, so I need a 12, and I get 2 tries to get a 12. I get an 11 on the first roll, so that makes it. And for damage, it's a D10 plus 1, which is 7 ignoring armor.
7 ignoring armor. That's absolutely fine. Your arrow slams home. It was the one who shouted "gut them," right? Which is the one who's had some kind of spinal injury in the past. Your arrow slams into his breast like a little off to be a lung hit, but it's pretty bad. He kind of howls with pain and carries on staggering forwards towards all of you. I take it are you using any movement on your second go? Movement thing?
No, I might.
Oh, sorry, no Elindra, John, by the way. You could, if it's easy to just leave her in, it's fine, and we'll just skip.
Can I use any part? Like, what part of my action is it to put my bow away and draw a sword?
That's the movement. You can movement with that.
Okay, I think I'm expecting they're gonna close.
They're gonna reach you this round,
I'll do that.
Absolutely. Aaron, are you gonna? If you want, you can dash forward and meet them face on.
I'm going to do that.
Okay. Are you going to go for the one who's been struck with the arrow or the one who has not?
I'll go for the one who's been struck.
Okay. Then give me an attack roll at -3, please.
Okay, -3. That's a target of 13, which I hit.
Okay.
And I would like to take them for questioning, so I'm planning on doing non-lethal damage.
Oh yeah, this is a thing we've started doing, by the way, if necessary, Mike. I can't remember how do we. I think you now do an accurate roll, right? Is that it for pulling the blow? No, I don't know.
I think that was right. I think it was an accurate roll, and then you do half damage.
And then you
Is
do
that
half damage if you succeed. I think that's
Half
what we
damage,
said, right?
but was it ignoring armor?
No.
So it's accurate instead of strong.
Well, you roll to hit first, and then you do an
Okay.
accurate roll because it's really hard to hit someone with a weapon and not horribly hurt them. So I decided that you need the accurate roll to see if you actually succeed in pulling your blow, as it were.
Right.
So,
That is a success on the accurate.
and then you roll your damage, and we half it, and that's what you do.
7.
And
And in Symbaroum, you round up, so 4 total.
Sure. As the man comes for you, you kind of strike out with the guard of your blade, and in what's more like a sideways punch than anything else. And you make contact with kind of the man's shoulder. He is, however, clad in chainmail and tabard, and you don't think he really feels it.
Fair enough.
So it's the Ambrian's turn. The one you've engaged is going to attack you, John.
Yep.
So that is going to be defense at -5, please.
Oh, okay. Oh my god, that's a 20. I'm going to spend an experience.
Okay.
That is still a fail, but it's not a bad fail.
Okay. In that case, please can you roll armor?
That is only 4.
Okay. In that case, this man clearly does know how to fight, and he also fights like a soldier. Like there's elements of Steo's fighting in what's happening here. And he lashes out at you, and most of the blade strike kind of runs across your. You wear a breastplate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it runs
like
across that.
Yeah.
But it leaves like a gash just on the inside of your arm there. Take 1 toughness. And the other one is going to strike for Askarai. So yeah, that's defense at -5, please, Askarai.
Okay, I need a 10. I get a 14, so I don't make it.
Okay, that's an armor roll, please.
It's 2d4. I rolled 2 total, a 1 and a 1.
Okay. Yeah, this individual comes for you absolutely raging, screaming with madness and pain in his eyes as his sword comes down and crashes. And it doesn't actually cut through your cloak, but it's like being battered, more than it's being cut. And you feel like, like sometimes, when you're hit with something that's so hard it bruises, the flesh almost feels like it's cracking in some way, like you feel like at first you think a bone's broken because it's so rough, and that basically crashes down on your collar there and impacts for 3 toughness.
Okay.
Anton, I'm assuming you're carrying on running to reach the group.
Yes, but if I can see that things are getting quite violent, then I would like to know if I could move and cast Blessed Shield.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. You can definitely do
that. Which I don't manage.
It's great to have you back, Mike. So you all hear kind of Anton desperately incanting in the name of Prios as he approaches behind the group. And then we've got Ganderald, who's flush with you. We've also got the Meerkat, whose name I will forever forget.
Farron. And we've got
Farron.
Revelia.
And no, you have
Revelia's with me.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So Farron, we haven't really come up with mechanics for Farron, but he should probably be allowed to attack, I think. So you know what? In future, we'll say that I can't be bothered to do it now, but if you note down the generic Meerkat stats,
sure,
and then you can play him. That's fine. You can just make attacks with him and stuff.
I was going to propose a thing on my turn,
Mhm.
if I could spend my movement action instead of moving, commanding him to put essentially like surround the person I'm attacking, so that when
Mhm.
I attack, I can get the flanking bonus.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, you don't. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's two individuals, he would be flanked. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We'll say in absence of having the stats here and do it. Like, yeah, we'll just say they're flanked for the rest of this combat for you. Background to Askarai.
This guy's gonna try and stab the guy who just hit him.
Sure. So that's a defense. That's a hit. He's got a -3 defense.
Okay, I'm gonna use feint, so I need a 12 on this because it gives me advantage in street. I do make it with an 8, and then it's a D8 because of this fancier sword that I have now, plus a D4 plus 1 damage, which is
Ooh.
8 damage.
Where's the D4 coming from? Sorry.
You get a feint gives advantage, which gives
Okay.
a D4
Yeah.
damage.
So what was the total? Sorry.
8, I think. Yeah, 8 damage.
8. But obviously not ignoring armor.
Nope.
Cheers. That's okay. Yep. You manage somewhat of a sword thrust that penetrates part of the chainmail a little bit. And it is a wound, but not a terribly grievous one, and the individual is definitely carrying on fighting with you. Nothing for your movement action, I assume. No, you're on mute, by the way. But yeah.
Don't want to move and let him stab me for free.
Absolutely. Arindar. So you are striking from with advantage. And their defense is normally -3, so now it is
-1.
yes, -1.
Okay. That is a hit. And I roll my D12 and a D4.
I take it you're not pulling your blow
No.
this time.
No, not now. 7.
So 7 damage.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you reel back from sort of the slice on your arm, and almost reflectively, kind of, you drop into your fencing stance. And when he comes through again, you lash out. He's unprepared for this level of finesse in fighting. And he basically runs so that not his throat, but the side of his neck, your sword just like plunges in and out like a knife through butter. And he gives a startled cry, and the wound is like bleeding quite heavy. You haven't like severed his artery or anything, but it's bleeding very heavily, and he's sort of staggering away from you with a cry of surprise and pain. And now we're on to them, unless you want to use your movement action for anything, Aaron.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, we are on to their attacks then. So Aaron Dar, do you want to give me a defense roll at -5, please?
Yes. Although, does it being flanked give me a bonus on my defense?
No.
Was that no? 2 -5. Target of 9. I roll a 6. Pass.
Okay, which means you get an attack back, right?
Yes.
Go for it. Remember, they're flanked.
The attack back
Attack at -1
is a hit and is 10 damage.
Right. Yeah, like basically he's kind of clutching, like he's got his shield up and he's kind of clutching at his throat, kind of like pouring at the blood gushing down his chest, and basically like levels that sword over the top of his shield and barrels forward to try and kind of bull you over into the ground. Yeah, you're not exactly at the level of Sword Saint, but your dueling skills are fine enough to know exactly what you do in this situation. You sidestep and thrust to your side, transfixing his body on your blade, and with a gurgle, he topples over to the ground, kind of feet desperately kicking at the earth as the the final spasms of life leave him. Askarai, you're kind of wheeled round, so the person you're fighting sees this happening, and it's definitely looking quite panicked at this, and is sort of trying to back away from you. Are you going to do or say anything to try and, I don't know,
I will
resolve
yell.
the situation?
I'll yell at him to drop his weapon and maybe throw an Ambrian scum at him or something like that.
Sure, absolutely.
Askrai's angry.
Do you want to roll persuade at, let's say, like +7?
Okay.
Just gonna want to give him a chance, you know?
Yeah. My persuade is 5, so I need a 12. I rolled a 13. Close.
Yeah, no. He responds by, he seems like he's going to listen to you for a second, and then he's like, he kind of like some horrible pain is racking through that old wound on his head, and he just charges for you. Can you give me a defense roll, please?
Yep.
It's a -5.
I need a 10. I get a 1.
Okay, that is a perfect defense, right?
Yeah.
So
Like a
you get a
mere
free
hit?
attack on him before he hits you, before he has a chance to hit you, which he doesn't anyway.
Okay, so I still need a 12, I think.
Mhm.
Rolled an 18, so I don't hit him either.
Okay, fair enough. Anton, is it flailing time?
Yeah, it is. It is flailing time, and probably grumpy old man wheezing and saddle sore time as well.
Sure, yeah.
Apologies for that mental image, everyone.
Well, you are flanking him, so that's an attack at a -1, please.
I don't make it, and I rolled an even, so I don't get my extra hit. So this has been very
so
futile.
good to have you back, Mike. So good to have you back.
Hey, it's like I never left.
Absolutely. I think with the situation you are in, I am happy for example, because Askarai goes next, but I am happy for a combination of you to try and subdue this individual. And if you roll a majority, like I'm going to ask for you to all roll accurate. And if, let's say, one of you succeeds in your accurate roll, you can basically down him without killing him. How about that? Just to put an end to this sorry situation.
What happens if I roll a 20?
Did you roll a 20? What a point on which to freeze. What a point and a shot on which to freeze.
On that bombshell.
He's definitely rolled a 20. Look
He's
at that
definitely
face.
rolled a 20. What's even better now is that he isn't frozen. This is just what he's doing.
He's just so happy to
Absolutely.
be back and rolling 20s.
I'm going to assume that he did roll a 20, so I'm going to want a successful, accurate roll from the both of you.
Okay.
I did make my accurate roll.
Accurate is 15. Oh no. No, I rolled an 18.
I want it to be known that I specifically stayed out of this combat so that Elindra didn't flip out and kill these people. And
there we go.
I tried.
Spends another experience point, but then I'm never going to gain experience points.
Let me tell you, Mike, that was hilarious. Because you said, "What if I rolled a 20?"
Oh no!
That was a question in advance of me actually rolling the dice, by the way.
Oh, you didn't actually roll a 20?
No.
Okay.
I just assumed that I would.
Oh,
fair
okay.
assumption.
Okay.
I take it that everyone else rolled a 20 by the reaction. That I
It was just I set the bar high because I thought you'd rolled a 20. So if you haven't, that's fine. You managed to bear this guy to the ground and disarm him. He's sort of howling and thrashing back at you and cursing you, but he is alive. And I think we will end the session there, folks. So thanks very much. We will take comments and questions in a second after I do a little bit of promo. Check below for links to YouTube, Twitch. You've watched this on one, do check out the other one. Links to social media, Patreon, Discord. Check them out if you're interested. We do 2 streams weekly at the moment. Symbaroum is on Wednesdays. Vason with Johnny is on Mondays. Please watch that one as well. We also do monthly one-shots. The November one will probably, we're putting the final touches on it, but will probably be this Sunday. Be a bit of a different one. If you want to bring up for Sherlock Holmes and a Vampire, who is also one of the aforementioned Sherlock Holmes, is the game we will be playing. It's a game sourced from Itch.io. It's kind of an improvisational, fun knockabout thing. Games only take 1 hour, so what we're going to do is run 2 of them with a slightly rotating cast. So that's going to be quite fun. So that should take place this Sunday at 3:00 GMT, which for anyone who isn't within that time zone, you might want to notice probably 2 hours, like an extra hour out from your time zone than it normally is until your particular weird agricultural time system clicks in later in winter. Just you might want to double check your hour switches, your time zone switches. That's all I'm saying. So with that done, comments and questions, please, Sir Aaron Dar, do the business for us.
This was just wonderful.
I've waited so long for a good Anton flail.
And then 5 seconds later.
It was everything I could have hoped for, yeah. I was going to say, I waited so long for a good Anton flail. You're going to carry on waiting for a bit longer. There we go. Did you make any rolls tonight, Mike? That's what I want
did.
to know.
Yeah, I made a Medicus roll. My first roll.
You did make a Medicus roll.
Yeah.
Good. There we go. Blood combat. Yeah. This is from Steve. Yeah, basically what it was is there's another thing called agile combat, which is like lots of somersaults and spins and stuff. I thought that was the Wrathguard one, but it's not. It's the Iron Sworn one. And of course, I was going to describe it. I'm sure you have already guessed who I was going to describe it being like. Something called agile combat. Yes, no, spins and somersaults and
the goblin.
One of your favorite NPCs.
Alphonse,
I like how Mike was indicating the character by going, yes, small. Yes, Earthons, of course, wonderful Earthons. Next.
It's bad that you were saying that, and I was just going, Qui-Gon Jinn? Like...
Qui-Gon Jinn, yeah.
Yeah, that well-known Symbaroum character.
He is practicer of Form 4 lightsaber combat, Ataru, which, is, as everyone knows, is the flippy one. Right. Let's carry on. Everyone disgusted with me. Absolutely disgusted. Don't kick food. His dice aren't cursed. They just have stream anxiety. Possible. Can't it be both? Steve, does anyone have any forbidden weapons? I wonder. Well, if you did, then you were let off by Gadramon, right? Nothing to declare.
I also really like the idea. I don't know if this is just a British phenomenon. It must not be, because it was originally a New Zealand show. There was a show called Nothing to Declare, which was like a reality TV inside like import sections of airports.
Okay.
And I just really want one of those for Karvosti, or just like,
Sure,
so are you aware
yeah.
that you're over the duty-free corrupted ancient
Absolutely.
artifact limit?
See, in my head, I really wish Chris had been here for this one. And presumably we literally haven't heard from him since he vanished off pre-stream, like not even a message from him. So we assume his internet is just balked completely. But like, yeah, I was so hoping he'd be there so that Stio could kind of go, oh, fine, my forbidden weapon, and hold out the spear, and they could just go, it's nothing. This means nothing to us.
The salt in the wound.
I was
This is
hoping
the
that in
most
his
normal-looking spear I've ever seen.
This is junk.
I sort of hope that in his absence that it was going to get the spear confiscated because of all of that.
Yeah,
deep
they
mystical
look at it
backstory.
and they go, "Oh my god, there's no way you can have this. If you unlock the secrets of this, then you could do anything."
Send out messengers. We need a clan council immediately.
Yeah, this needs to be thrown into the fiery pit from whence it came.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not by you. Nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
John, be the backstory you want your weapon to have in the world. I think we found our first TT t-shirt slogan. Allowing dark rumors about Davokar and Nostio around to rumble about them. I know, right? Yeah, we always do miss Chris when he's not here, and of course we have missed Mike hugely. It's great to have him back.
Yeah.
Does everyone like the surprise? Surprise, Mike.
Yes.
People weren't faking it. Well, two of us weren't faking it. Steve and Sam didn't know, and neither did Chris. But he was.
I was going to try and pass that off as excellent role play, but you've just given
just
away our secrets.
Now I've just ruined it by letting people know it was genuine loving emotion.
Yeah. Matt, come on.
Steve, 4 vampires and a wedding. That must be a spin-off of the game we're playing this Sunday. Tune in 3:00 GMT.
I would also like to give a shout out that I have been sourcing murder ideas for this Sunday from our lovely patrons who are part of our Discord. So if you want to suggest a murder scene, join us on Patreon and join our Discord.
Yeah. And add to the massive list of things that they won't even be able to vaguely. Is there only one murder per scenario?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got a list of about 20 things, and 2 of them are going to get. How are we going to pick
I'm
going to
draw them out of a hat.
Yeah. That sounds fun, right? Out of a Sherlock Holmes hat?
I don't have a Sherlock Holmes hat. I've got a
fuck is
Seahawks
this?
baseball cap. That's almost a deer stalker, right?
If Sherlock Holmes was modern and real and American, he'd definitely be a fan of the Seattle Seahawks. So I think we can all agree on that. So that sounds good. All right then, folks. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Thank you to my players as always. Thank you, of course, to Mike, who has finally returned, the prodigal son, to rejoin. He's where he belongs now. He's back where he belongs. Rolling 20s and
but having a good time. No,
having
that away from me.
Just the best little time.
Real 20s with the friends we made along the way.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, folks. Take care. Stay safe out there. Join us on Sunday for Sherlock Holmes and the vampire thing. Long, confusing title. It'll be fun. And yeah, we'll see you next week for more Symbaroum.